my name is Yipan, and I'm working with Kenny, and we're from Disney Research. Today I'm going to talk about the user experience on the posing character in the mixed reality environment. So here's the outline of today's talk. It's more like the general structures. We talk about why we're doing it and how we design our system, and then an evaluation and a conclusion. Okay, so let's to see the first page. It's why we are doing it. Like nowadays, when people posing and animating characters, they normally use Maya or different kind of the software tools. However, in most cases, they were using a desktop and the mouse and keyboard to do it. However, this is not really going to work, especially in the virtual reality filmmaking, because different from traditional filmmakings, and the camera can alter the angle and eventually only a 2D image going to show on the final production. However, in the virtual reality filmmakings, like the guests or the viewers always can moving their head around in order to see the environment. So if we only fix to make sure one view is working properly, it's not really going to work in the virtual reality filmmaking. And another issue is, in terms of the posing characters, a lot of previous research has already demonstrated that the most consuming part is to pose the characters, to make the rig, to make a frame that posing properly. So the main problem is the artist has to rotate their head around in order to see the proper image. So we are thinking about what if we are doing things in the 3D environment, like in virtual environment or mixed reality environment. Because the 3D characters has a 3D in nature, so we were thinking if we do everything in 3D, it might speed up the process, and we don't really need to know a lot of Mayas, know a lot of keyboard. So everyone, no matter if it was the 10 years professional in the animation industry or just beginners, they can start to posing and rigging the characters and make some animations. So that is the whole motivation why we're doing this. So in summary, we're going to present a system called Pose MMR that allows multiple users to simultaneously to posing and rigging characters in the mixed reality system. After we discuss our system, we evaluate our system based on the group-based expert walkthrough, and those experts was the professional animators. Next, let's look at what previous work has been done. To posing character in the immersive environment, it's become very popular since headset become relatively cheap, and a lot of companies start to trying out to making character animation in the virtual reality, and the virtual reality filmmaking become more and more popular. There were some tools for the general people, like amateurs was using, like in the blue color. There was animation VR, Facebook Quill, and and also there was some professional the animation studios in a green background, like the Disney and the Penrose, or start to develop some virtual reality tools. And in Disney, what they developed animation toys based on the single user, one person can use the tool and posing and rigging the characters in 3D environment. But it's not focused for the multiple users. So in this case, it's when doing some animation review, when the multiple person wants to see the image, then they have to use 2D screen to see the image, and only one person can be in the VR. So some people outside the VR can only see the 2D view, so they cannot really see all the perspective of the image. And also similarly, there was another system called Penrose They were also developed the virtual reality, like professional animator use, like system. However, they allows multiple users, but they not focus on the rigged characters. So different from all this system, like our system will support multiple users. And also instead of the virtual environment, we use the mixed reality environment. The highlight of using mixed reality environment is like if multiple person with you in the one room, they can always discuss, they can see each other, they can discuss and more naturally comparing to the virtual environment which completely block themselves out. And also we particularly focus on the rigged characters. It's more like the next extension of the poster VR, but we use mixed reality and we support multiple users. Like this whole of this work was inspired by the post VR actually. So let's look at the system design. For the hardware, like actually any kind of the mixed reality headset will do, but for the case, we just use one of the selected commercial available system like HTC Vive. We use two HTC Vive for each of the users, and those two headsets will connect to the Windows 10 PC. And as you can see, the two people was wearing a headset and they were using controller to talk to posing characters and discuss what they were posing. And they can see everything's in mixed reality, and the character was in 3D, and they can see each other outside the world. They can even have a coffee while they were posing a character for a long time. Okay, let's look at the software implementation. And in this first generation of the post-MMR, we has looked into the full aspect of the software implementation. The first one is the immersive posing. That is the posing character in 3D using the virtual environment input, which has a 6 degrees of freedom, and also have a headset which people can see the stereo view. And with mainly similar to the Maya, we have three type of the animation editing method: the forwarding kinematics, inverse kinematics, and the master control. The forward kinematic is basically for the very detailed animation posing aspects, such as the finger of the characters. And inverse kinematics is mainly for some aspect we aimed where the pose is going to be, for example, in the case of the middle figure, and that is making the frog looking at the targets, which using the inverse kinematic. And lastly, the master control, which has position of the characters and the rotation of the characters and the size of the characters. People can use the master control to put the character into where they want to be or rotate around. Finally, they can scale to the different size. For example, they can make an elephant super large, similar to the real size of the elephant. And that is very useful. For example, in Disney, there were some of the characters very big and some of the characters very small. When retargeting a small character or retargeting a big characters, the style of the motion was different. So if we can actually scale the character to exactly the size, and then editing this animation, that will be very straightforward view giving the animator. And then let's move on to the second aspect is animation editing. After the animator posing a character, they can set this pose to a keyframe, and which they can put on their timeline. And also they can make a motion pass by using controller to rotate around. And it's more like a printed brush that can make the pass draw a pass in 3D. And the figure below shows the different kind of the UI, for example, the controller's key and also the timeline, which allows people to make each of the keyframe and export as a FBX, and then they can use it into any kind of the Unity or Unreal things to make the final edition. And next aspect is the networking. We use a Photon network. At the beginning, we were thinking about whether we're using UNet or the Photon. And since we do a little bit research, we found the Photon network supporting like a 20 user for free, and you can pay for a little bit for more user, and it have less of the latency. First of all, we make the pose of one user moving a character to make a certain pose, and those poses was spawned all over the network, so different, like to make sure that all the users were on the same virtual environment state. That's how we make the system working for the multiple user. And the next one, which is the last software implementation, is the live collaborative animation effort. This is basically trying to solve the conflict. We learned the similar ideas such as the Git or Google Doc. And so if the one people and another animators were trying to access the same node, they will change to color to the red, which indicate the conflict, to make sure that during the animation review process and people can see things in a straightforward way if they were trying to access as the same node. Okay, after making this system, we evaluate our system based on the expert walkthrough. For the evaluation, because it's need like professional animators, so we didn't recruit very large number of the people, so we only recruit 8 people, sorry. But these people have like nearly 10 years of the animation experience, but they didn't use like immersive technology such as the VR and AR headset for a long time, and normally they use the Maya for doing a 3D character animation. And we pair these 8 people as 4 pairs to use our system. And then the basic procedure is that we ask them to fill out the information like how many years you're doing in the animation industry, have you used any virtual environment headset before, and then we ask them to do 3 tasks. The first one is to collaboratively create animation clip using the forward kinematics. Like they were posing a character using the forward kinematics and they eventually make an animation clip. And after that, using similar manners, they were creating another animation clips. Instead of using forward kinematics, they were using inverse kinematic. And the last task is they have to collaboratively editing animation clip, which is pre-recorded motion capture data. And they can move into 1 frame forward, 1 frame backward, and discuss, and eventually it's basically similar to like the clean up mocap data, but in the 3D environment. And after they're doing the 3 tasks, we do a group discussion as a final walkthrough. So they were looking at the different aspects, like how they feel about immersive posing, how they feel about whether they should use AR or VR, and how they feel about collaborations. And here is like our results. Our results can be separated in different aspects, and the first one we discuss about how they feel about immersive experience. As we use like this mixed reality environment, they can do a 3D tracking using the 6 degree of freedom controller as input device, and also user can see the stereoscopic view. And those like animators has a comments on it. They feel like this like a 6 degree of freedom like controllers, and comparing to the traditional desktop and the mouse input, they feel like it's more straightforward, and they can make a pose more intuitively and think about the performance instead of using different like keys, even though they were very, very professional at like using the Maya. And also another thing, and one person directly comments on it, like I can see things in 3D, like they can see things in 3D vision, so it's more straightforward, like as the characters is just like stand next to you, so they can posing, and it's more like feel like more direct and more creative. And that is the highlights of the virtual mixed reality environment. And another question, like they were discussing whether they think it's VR or AR is better, which is like more like mixed reality. Like our mixed reality system, not only about the collaborations, but people can see each other, which is like they can talk and they can show the gestures while discussion. So in this kind of multi-view, like a multi-user system, like they definitely think the mixed reality is supporting better. However, for just the virtual content, they think if it's just a single person composing a character, they think that virtual content is good enough to just view the character from different viewport, or to scale it to super large or it is super small. And then they will move on to the user interface, like how they like about the forward kinematic and inverse kinematic. They feel like the forward kinematic is more for the very precise like rotations, very precise adjustment. However, inverse kinematic is more likely to use the stretch and scratch to make the general stuff. And one person feel like they feel like they would like to do the inverse kinematic first, and then to adjusting a little bit using the forward kinematic. So another comment, they feel like it would be great if they just like if in one system they can just press a button to toggle around the inverse kinematic and forward kinematic. That would be more compact and more straightforward. And it's more like when they put like making animation in Maya, like they just using some shortcut to make it working. And so in the future, we probably think about to integrate this like a toggle around key in the Vive controllers or the oculars to make this user interface better. And also about making the motion pass, some people feel like to make a motion pass in 3D is very, very helpful because they can see the room and then they make the pass, like they feel like the characters just travel along them. But some people feel like the motion pass is not so easy to make because their hands is always sometimes shaking while making the motion pass. So they comment in the future it will, if we're adding a filter function to make this like more stable, that might be better options. For example, also they were thinking about if they can key some key point on the motion pass, and that might be alternative way to make this motion pass better. And the next one is how about like changing the size and perspective. One of the highlights of using this mixed reality system is like people can walk around to adjusting character from all the angle and aspect to make this character is posing properly, not only from a front view. Like if they were in the Maya, they have to rotate around the character to make a different pose, which is kind of time consuming. However, in the VR, they can just like tilt their hand a little bit or walk around a little bit or discuss a little bit to rig the characters. And also to the scale the path and its motion pass and the scale of the characters is very helpful and like a very direct feeling giving how to make this pose actually working in terms of the different size of the characters. The next one they will talk about the collaboration. They feel like during the character posing process, like they're more likely to work on each of the individual characters and not talk to each other much. But during the animation review process, they would like to, like in the shared environment, they can see, oh, I want to adjust this a little bit, like they use this, that, and it's more easy to adding a keyframe or to work things together. But in terms of posing, they comment they definitely want to work alone, which is more like the private things, more quiet. They can pose in a creative and artistic way. And another interesting comment is to mix motion capture and keyframes. They want, because animators sometimes are looking at the mirrors to look at themselves of the facial expressions when they make the characters animation pose, like face pose or different kind of the facial expressions. And similar idea, they think it will be great if they can mock-up themselves into a virtual environment and then editing a little bit. For example, one of the easy way we can do is adding a 3 vibe trackers, one on each of the feet and another on the body. So, and then using inverse kinematic to drive the character a little bit, so they can step inside of a character to do a mocap and stand outside the character to do some editing. So that is about our systems, different animators comments on it. So what is the application of the pose MR? We list a couple of examples. One of the most straightforward way is the virtual reality film making. So after the people posing and animating characters in 3D, they can directly export as FBX and then send into the Unity or the Maya to do additional adjustment, and then they can use it directly as a VR filmmaking. And the second one is a 3D character posing and animation, because even nowadays in Maya, to pose a character in 3D, it's need a lot of click and rotate around the character different aspect to place the camera into a proper angle, which is very time consuming. However, using the 3D content, 3D view, 6 degree of freedom input, it's giving a better natural way to posing the characters, because the character itself is in 3D. And another one is for the animation review. It's one of the highlights different our system from a previous system, such as a post VR system. It's for the directors, artists, and multiple user can come together into the virtual environment and review the animation and discuss the animation. And lastly, our system can use for the physical simulations or robotic character animation mocap. Because in some of the robotic characters, it's taking forever to make the actual robot is working. However, they can use AR, using the AR headset, and then to make the character working. It's as a simulator. So for the conclusion, I'm going to show you a video to summarize our system and our design guidelines for evaluation of the system.
We present Pose MMR, allowing multiple users to animate characters in a mixed reality environment, like how a stop-motion animator would manipulate a physical puppet, frame by frame, to create the scene. We showed that Pose MMR can facilitate immersive posing, animation editing, version control, and collaboration. We provided a set of guidelines to foster the development of immersive technologies as tools for collaborative authoring of character animation.
Okay, that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.